And why don't we start by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And there's the flag. All right. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's welcome everyone. Let's call this meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February 1st, and we're at the Sheraton Denver downtown in the Windows Room, and it's great to see so many people here. Amendments to the agenda?
No amendments from staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. Item number 3, let's talk about the approval of the meeting minutes from December 8th, 2021. Take a motion. Second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, Kent's with us, isn't he? Okay.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Kent. Okay, we have approval of the minutes. Number 4, Hawan, you want to guide us through our board elections? We'll start with you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pavan Nelson. I'm an assistant attorney general, and I represent the Colorado Aeronautical Board and help them with their legal issues. So good morning. I'm happy to be here. Pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 4310-104, the board elects its officers every year during this meeting. And it's my pleasure to facilitate the elections this morning. I'm going to separate the positions out, or out by position. First, I'm going to read the job description for each officer. Second, I'm going to call for nominations for that position. And finally, I'm going to call for a vote for the nomination for that position. So the first official position up for election is the position of chairman. The responsibilities of the chairman of the Colorado Aeronautical Board is to preside over board meetings, to represent and when appropriate speak for the board, to provide leadership to the board and the division, to call when he deems it appropriate special meetings and pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-64023, executive sessions of the board, and to create such committees and subcommittees comprised of members of the board as he or she seems appropriate. Do we have any nominations for the position of chairman?
If anyone wants to nominate, please speak up. So, well, so for the chair is currently me.
Yeah.
And then I am renewing my term for another 3 years. So if you are so inclined.
I am so inclined.
Okay.
Wasn't that sure that I understood that. So.
But I'm fine if you'd like to.
No, I
somebody
don't.
else.
So I'd like to nominate to remain as chair.
Okay, so Mr. Maimpa has been nominated as chairman.
Yeah.
Do we have a second? Great. Do we have any other nominations for the position of chairman? Great. So at this time, oh, well, let me ask you, Mr. Maimpa, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I am willing.
Great. So at this time, I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Maimpa as chairman of the board.
All those.
All those in favor?
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Well, congratulations, Mr. Maimpa. You have been elected as chairman of the board.
Thank you. It's an honor.
The next position is the position of vice chairman. The responsibilities of vice chairman is to assume the duties and responsibility of the chairman in the event of the chairman's unavailability. Do we have any nominations for the position of vice chairman?
I nominate Kent Holtzinger.
Does anybody second that nomination? Great. Do we have any other nominations for the position of vice chairman? Seeing none, Mr. Holsinger, are you willing to accept the nomination of Vice Chairman?
I am, and I'm honored. Thank you.
Great. So at this time, I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Holsinger as Vice Chairman of the board. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Seeing none, congratulations, Mr. Holsinger. You've been elected Vice Chairman of the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next position is the position of Secretary. The responsibility of the Secretary is to assume the duties and responsibility of the Vice Chairman in the event of the Vice Chairman's unavailability. Do we have any nominations for the position of Secretary?
I'd like to nominate Chip Meyer.
Do we have a second? Great. Is Mr. Myers on the line?
No, he's not here.
Is that available? Okay. So at this
Just
time,
surprise him.
okay. Do we have any other nominations for the position of Secretary? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote approving the nomination of Mr. Myers as Secretary of the Board. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Congratulations, Mr. Myers. You have been elected Secretary of the Board.
Thank you, Pavan. Well, great. I guess you guys are stuck with us. Okay. Next, let's start with some board member reports, and let's start with Kent Holtzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I can't join everyone in person today. Excited to hear about the terminal expansion in Montrose. The continued activity at our airports is just very heartening to hear. AWAS cameras can continue to be just a wonderful resource for pilots and something I personally use really frequently. Very excited about those. I'm concerned about EPA's proposal to look at avgas, and notwithstanding their recognition that lead emissions, airborne emissions are down 99% from just a few decades ago. Concerned about effects on price of avgas. It's already incredibly expensive, and we'll be watching that with interest. I know Centennial Airport has done some pretty extensive studies relative to impacts from lead and found that fortunately airports really don't have much impact to local communities that way. We're locked in snow and ice and cold conditions up in Walden, and looking forward to warmer months and more flying ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Kent. Trimby.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, great. I'm the pilot organizations representative for Colorado, and I'm going to start with the Colorado Pilots Association. The Colorado Pilots Association ever popular mountain flying course will be offered twice in 2022, June 25th and August 27th. I have a lot of information if anybody needs notes or needs to ask me later, websites and information like that. I can give that to you later. Colorado Pilot Association January speaker was from our own National Museum of World War II Aviation in Colorado Springs. Its head Don Johnson spoke via Zoom. February speaker for Colorado Pilot Association will be David Sean Williams of the NTSB in Denver, scheduled for February 28th. March's speaker will be Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association Josh Pruzek. He is of the Northwestern Mountain Regional, he's the manager of the Northwestern Mountain Regional AOPA. That is scheduled for March 21st, if you want to hear Josh Pruzek speak. Please share with anyone seeking scholarships. Most of the pilot organizations I'm going to be speaking of do have scholarship applications due. I will tell you what those dates are, but Colorado Pilot Association's deadline is due June 1st for scholarship applications. Moving on to the Colorado Aviation Business Association, the recent Colorado Aviation Business Association Veterans of Foreign Wars Holiday Airlift included 22 pilots who generously donated their time and their aircraft expenses to fly to 10 airports around Colorado. I won't list those, but there are a total of more than 9,000 pounds of perishable food that was sent out and transported, along with specifically requested toys and supplies. An estimated 1,400 Colorado veterans and their families were served. The the CAOA annual meeting is going to be held on March 29th. If you're interested in attending that, if you are interested in joining CAOA as well, their meeting is March 29th. They're bringing back, with very high demand for the 6th time, the keynote speaker, Ed Bolin, the president and CEO of the National Business Aviation Association. The venue for that is to be determined. The CAOA yearly scholarship deadline was in December, and the scholarships for that will be presented at the annual meeting, March 29th. Colorado Wing of Civil Air Patrol. The Colorado Wing of Civil Air Patrol search and rescue statistics for 2021 are up on their website. They saved a lot of lives and did a lot of finds. Their disaster relief missions, air defense intercept training, and evaluation missions are super important. They also support missions for the state and partnering agencies and organizations. 150 new private pilots were produced by Civil Air Patrol alone. I don't believe that's nationwide. That's not from Colorado. I don't have the statistics just for Colorado. Colorado's Colonel Gary Toby would like to emphasize Lieutenant Colonel Rochelle Kimbrell, whom Colonel Toby knew in the 1990s as an outstanding Colorado Civil Air Patrol cadet who commanded the Colorado Wing Cadet Drill Team that went to national championships in the 90s multiple times. As a retired U.S. Air Force officer and F-16 fighter pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Rochelle Kimbrell is now a civilian instructor at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Women in Aviation International Mile High Chapter is next. We would like to introduce 3 new Colorado chapters of Women in Aviation International. We've branched out and formed a partnership with them. So they are the MSU student chapter of new aviators and women in aviation coming forward. Ames Community College student chapter, Western Colorado regional chapter. So now we have a mountain area Western Colorado regional chapter, which is great. I, as the president of Women in Aviation Mile High for 4 years and now the current outreach chair for them, gathered these chapter leaders together just yesterday, and we interviewed with Luis De Leon of 9 News. There will be a feature story about women in aviation on February 14th on 9 News. Women in Aviation International's popular FAA Aeronautical Team Hypoxia Training and Experience event was postponed with direct orders from DC. It is rescheduled, and it will be May 9th through 15th, and it has been postponed a few times with direct orders from DC. The FAA and their Portable Reduced Oxygen Training Enclosure, also known as the PROT, will be coming from Oklahoma City to Broomfield, Colorado. The venue may change, but we're hoping it will be at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport and will be held at Western Air Flight Academy. Women in Aviation Mile High's next event will be a mentoring event at Shelter at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport, February 9th. They recently held a vintage glamour shoot in conjunction with the Commemorative Air Force at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport. We will be holding a Spring Girls in Aviation Day event at Wings Over the Rockies with Keith Palmer's help. That will be in April. And the Women in Aviation International Mile High Chapter scholarships were recently awarded. They are attendance for the conference, airline, and hotel in Nashville for the yearly Women in Aviation Conference. Always about growing leaders into leaders, and those conferences are super important. Colorado 99s are hosting a Spring South Central Section meeting in Boulder, March 25th through the 27th. If you're interested in attending that, one of the speakers, or the keynote speaker, is going to be George Bai of Bai Aerospace, speaking to the future of electric aircraft. So that proves to be that will be very fun. They're calling it the Mountains and Memories Spring South Central 99s Conference. Again, that's March 25th through the 27th. The Colorado 99s offers scholarships. The deadline is April 30th. They have a February Zoom speaker, a U.S. Air Force Academy graduate named Kristen Vore. She's an Air Force test pilot and military pilot trainer. Kristen is the aircraft commander pilot of the B-52 bomber. If you're interested in hearing her speak, that Zoom speaker event is, I don't have the date, I apologize. I didn't write that down. The Colorado Seaplanes Initiative Pilots Association. Okay, there are 2 splash-ins scheduled for June, early June at Lake Meredith and mid-July for Kenny Reservoir. Colorado will see its first in-state trained and rated seaplane pilot in March, if all goes well with weather, and the add-on FAA check ride is going to be conducted at Lake Meredith. So that's pretty interesting and exciting for Colorado. I do not have a report for EAA. They don't really have an organization. They are collectively just separate chapters of EAA. I do not have a report. Colorado Aviation Historical Society, in conjunction with Wings Over the Rockies exploration of flight on December 7th, in commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, the society hosted an eyewitness of the attack. That was at Wings Over the Rockies. I have a couple more. I have Angel Flight West. Their annual fundraising race was at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport. It's known as the 5K Race for the Angels, and it was held in the fall. It raised over $11,000. Over 100 in-person racers and over 80 virtual participants raced on the airport and ran. Because of the generous sponsors, Angel Flight West can utilize all of that $11,000 for their organization and would like to thank their sponsors. Angel Flight West seats race sponsors annually, as well as pilots to show off their planes along the race course and at the start and finish lines. So if you know anybody who would like to they're seeking pilots willing to give a flight to a racer as well after the race, which is kind of nice. Of the 4,100 flights nationwide that Angel Flight West flew, the Angel Flight organization, 181 of them were Colorado pilots. So that's wonderful. The last report is for the Colorado Commemorative Air Force Organization. They have an annual World War II ball that's going to be held at Boulder Airport again. Always fun. It will include an air show for those in attendance. That will be held on June 18th. And I just want to note that many of these pilot organizations were represented via their volunteerism at the recent Colorado Air Show at Northern Colorado Regional Airport. And that includes my report. If you have any questions and would like websites or contacts, you can speak to me afterwards.
Outstanding. Thank you for the very thorough report, Trimby. Mr. Van Tine.
Well, good morning. If I may, I'd like to build on what Kent mentioned and talked about in the lead avgas issue, because it's about really to get into hyperspeed. We've been talking as an industry about the challenges around leaded fuel for many years, a couple decades, and the industry has been challenged with finding an alternative to it. But on January 12th, EPA announced their plans to review and evaluate whether emissions from piston engine aircraft operating on leaded fuel endanger public health and welfare. And that process is going to begin with proposing an endangerment finding in 2022. And by the time we get to the end of 2023, it's very likely that the EPA will announce that it is endangering the public. And that's going to, again, change the pace on which we move forward. You know, there's no quick solutions to that. We know that, but the industry is really starting to come together finally to work on that. Many of you know, and have seen in the press, that 2 airports in California, Reed View and San Martin airports, have stopped selling 100 low lead. Yeah, the irony for me is Reed View was my home airport for many years when I lived in California. So I know some of the challenges in that area of getting fuel. Now, they've replaced it with, or allowed it to be replaced with UL 94, which is an unleaded product that's made by Swift. The problem is that it is, while it's a direct replacement for under low lead, it is really approved on a very small select group of airframes and power plants. The other fuel alternative that's on the, that is on the horizon comes from the General Aviation Modifications Incorporated, GAMI. We've heard of GAMI. They have their first STC last year and are beginning to sell the STCs for that. But again, it's a very limited group. The challenge that we have here is that it's both safety, it's community, and it's economic. The replacement fuels that we're talking about and seeing are going to be anywhere from 60 cents to $1 more expensive. So we're going to be faced with that. I think the other concern that we have, ought to be, especially as airport operators, paying attention to is that this leaded fuel issue becomes a conduit or an opportunity for opponents to the airports to leverage that issue in their local communities. And so this is one, Mr. Chairman, I think that, that needs to stay on our agenda. We need to stay close to it as it progresses. There is going to be a lot of public questioning and concern as this becomes much more public, which it will. So again, a big issue for all airport operators, for the industry as a whole. Secondly, I have had an opportunity over the last couple of weeks to spend some really good quality time with the principals of several manufacturers in general aviation. So Aspen Avionics, Avidyne, Garmin, the aircraft, Hartzell, Redbird, AirCap, Syncom. Some of that was having fun on skiing in Park City, but had a real opportunity to listen to some of the challenges that the manufacturers are faced in this current environment. It's not, and none of this is new news to everybody. They have very significant supply chain issues, particularly around, for the avionics manufacturers, around computer chips. In fact, it's severe. So the industry is too small to buy directly from the manufacturers of these chips. So they buy through distributors. Dan Swin from Avidyne gave me the example that they ordered 18 months ago, and on the delivery date, the distributor said that all their chips went to Apple, and so he didn't have a date for them. So, on the opposite side of this, I mean, this is the good news, bad news. The good news side is demand for aircraft and avionics is unprecedented, and so the issue, though, and this is going to stay with us for quite some time, is that these manufacturers are not going to be able to get the key components that they need. Many of them are talking about actually re-engineering what chips they do use, and that, of course, opens the certification issue. So the industry's faced big challenges. On the workforce side, it's not just manufacturing interruptions from COVID, which they've all faced, but it is finding good qualified people to work in their companies. And so, again, that's one for us to watch as an industry and as a board, especially as we talk about education and helping people, young people move into the industry. Last board meeting, I indicated that Wings Over Rocky Captain Jeppesen Foundation would be opening scholarship applications or taking scholarship applications in February. That's been moved a month. That's going to begin now in March. And for those of you who don't know, that scholarship program this year is going to provide up to 20 $10,000 scholarships for young people aged 15 to 18 to go learn to fly. And so watch the Wings Over the Rockies website for that. Bill Payne, I know we'll talk about the remote tower program, but I hope in the future, but in this meeting, but Bill's invited me to fly my little Sportsman in support of the testing of that, which may happen next week or the week after. So I'm excited about that, to actually get hands-on with that program. So thank you, Bill. And then the last thing is that, which is the fun thing, is George, I flew, when I went to Park City, I flew out last Thursday, and this is the first time I've seen it. It was snowing. I was on a United flight sitting in the de-icing pad, and I looked down the runway, and I counted, there was 18 of these snow plows in unison. And then they made the turn and came right past us down the taxiway. It was spectacular. So no wonder we have a world-leading airport, but that snow removal looked like, it was choreographed, it was beautiful, and it was great to see all that equipment. So that was just a fun note. So, and Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Well said, well said. I was imagining if you were at Park City, did you go to the ski jump park? Did you test that out or anything?
I
That's
stood there
fun.
and
That's
watched.
aviation. Oh,
I
you
watched.
Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. So, okay, George.
It's going to shock you, but that actually wasn't me out on the airfield. No, I have, my update is very brief, because I had one point that when it happened, I really wanted to emphasize it, but a couple of things but before that. One, first, thank you to CAOA for having us here today. It's great to be in person. I think this is my first meeting as being on the board to be here in person since it's happened. So I'm really excited about the discussions today, and thanks for putting together a good program. The second thing is I want to welcome my new neighbor, Jeff Kloska, who's at Colorado Air and Spaceport, comes to us from Texas, so he's clearly smart. And really excited. I anticipate being your second favorite board meeting as soon as the commissioner is here. But the big thing, I want to put a point of emphasis on this. I live in Lafayette with my family, and this is the first meeting we've had since the Marshall Fire. And I just wanted to call a special recognition to Rocky Mountain Metro. It's a major community event, as you all know. And I just was really impressed at the way that Rocky Mountain jumped into action to support the community. I don't know if you all know, but they found something like 15,000 square feet of space to take all of the donations that were coming around the community. And I just thought it was a really important reminder of the role that airports around the state play in the community. It meant a lot to me personally, but also, we're gonna have a discussion about noise later on today, and I think it's a good reminder that we have a really important relationship with our communities. And I'll tell you, as soon as I saw that, I knew that when we were having this meeting, I wanted to make a point of highlighting that, because I thought it was really important. So that is my update.
Outstanding. I don't really have a lot. I do want to talk about just kind of update on, as the Western Slope. I will tell you that it's pretty clear for the most part, all airports, except for Grand Junction, I believe, but everybody had very either record or their employments have recovered from the pandemic. So really exciting news. I mean, Montrose, they're pushing almost 200,000 employments. That's just amazing in 2021. Durango, Gunnison, everybody is just really reporting a healthy rebound. In terms of revenue, even at my little airport in Telluride, it was by far a record in terms of volume of fuel and fuel sales. And to kind of offset the challenges, I would strongly suggest that you talk to your FBOs and including sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. It's just been a real big hit for us. In fact, there are people or owners that want to negotiate fuel prices with you, and when we tell them that we are featuring sustainable aviation fuel, they're happy to pay that premium price. So it's a good suggestion, and I encourage all airports to in some way try to incorporate SAF, which can offset the challenges, especially with the 100 low lead. There are some exciting things that are happening as Mr. Van Tine discussed. I know Avfuel, I've kind of been talking to them and bugging them about, when can we get our hands on that 100 or unleaded 100 UL. And there are some steps, but I think we're encouraged. So I think that's good. Another thing I think that was really interesting, it's really in the very, let's call it, in some strong planning phases in terms of trying to transport jet fuel or aviation fuel to the Western Slope via rail car. If there anything that taught us this past year with some scares and some shortages and what have you, with the mudslides, it just seems now there's just no break really. And the shortage of drivers, I think, is the big one. So it's very encouraging. Avfuel is taking the lead in trying to incorporate rail transportation by rail of fuel to the Western Slope. So hopefully we won't be impacted as much this coming year. And that's what's exciting about our industry. And it's really kudos to everyone, all players, and to you airports as well as suppliers, is that's what we do. We adapt, we change, and we try to figure out how a better way to make a mousetrap. So very, very proud of our industry and to see that with the supply chain issues and what have you. So that's all I have. Did I catch everybody? I think I did. Okay, well, let's go to the next item. It's public comments. Is there anyone that would like to offer some comments? We will have another opportunity at the end of the meeting as well. I think we have a special treat from FNL. But anyone have anything you'd like to share at this time? Seeing none? Okay, well, we're gonna get to spend the day together, so I'm sure we'll get to hear what's going on in your world, and I look forward to that. Encourage you to do that. So the next item is the director's report. Director Elaine.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I apologize. There was no written director's report in your packet. You all just got a packet 2 weeks ago, so I didn't really have a whole lot to put down in writing, but I do have just a couple of things. One of the great things I know you all are aware of are the tremendous videos that our own Sean Sederberg does about different things happening in our aviation world. Those take a lot of effort, from scripting to producing to filming to writing, editing, and all of that. Sean takes a lot of work. The one he's been tasked with to work on presently is one about the aviation economic impact study and some of the real life stories that are out there with aviation economic impact. So we are almost done with that video. We had a couple of things that had to put that on the back burner for a little bit, but what Sean's got for you is a Hollywood style trailer to show you what you'll all have the opportunity to share back in your local communities here within the next couple of weeks. So Sean and I are both Mac users, so every time we stand in front of a Windows computer, we get a little freaky, but that's why I'm gonna let him do that. So
cool. I'll go ahead and introduce the video just a little bit, but I had the opportunity to spend some time with Kenny at Telluride, Randy Hayes out in Akron, and Greg Phillips down in Colorado Springs to try to get a contrast of how all these different airports have their revenue streams. So each of them are really unique. We've got, a lot of vacation traffic. Colorado Springs has the military and a lot of other traffic with visitors as well. And then Akron is kind of that one where we don't talk about airports out on the Eastern Plains very much, but it was really interesting to see what an economic engine that little airport is, just with the different aircraft services that he has out there. So this is just a kind of a trailer to get you excited about it, hopefully. And then we'll delve in a little deeper on each one of those airports and how their economic benefit relates to our state. So this is just to kind of get you going.
That's 4285, runway 29, approach 6. Scott is 4285, clear takeoff, unit. Runway 29, taxi Alpha Vulture, runway 22. Copy, Alpha Vulture, runway 22.
Colorado is known for its majestic beauty, its wide open spaces, and places to play. But Colorado is also known for its dynamic system of 76 public use airports, each providing critical aviation services.
We also operate the FBO and all the FBO operations. So we sell the fuel, provide all the pilot services.
Specialized jobs.
It provides a lot of quality jobs that are better paying for most small communities.
And gateways for Colorado's visitors.
More people are discovering Telluride and the Colorado mountains, and they want to come back.
All of which greatly support and contribute to our local and state economies.
People fly in through Colorado Springs Airport, then they stay at local hotels. They rent a car, they eat at our restaurants, they go to the shops downtown. So all that has, tremendous economic benefit, not just for the airport itself, but for the larger community too.
Based on the findings of the 2020 Colorado Aviation Economic Impact Study, Colorado's airports support approximately 8% of our state's economy. Colorado airports provide nearly 346,000 jobs and generate more than $16.2 billion in payroll, $27 billion in value added, and nearly $49 billion in overall business revenue. Coming soon, we'll take a deeper look into the economic impacts of 3 Colorado airports, demonstrating Colorado's diversity in airport revenue streams. So there you have it. So stay tuned for the rest of this. Okay. Yeah, I will. Let's see here. I'll back up here. Now what? How do I get out of this stuff? Cool. There we go. Okay, so there's a couple of different recognitions that we'd like to give out. Hey, can you flip through my? I just wanted. Well, it's all right. I put up a photo of these boards on a couple of slides on there. I don't know if you can click the right arrow button to get to Josiah's. But anyway, I wanted to. Josiah's on the line. He's actually in Atlanta. Josiah was State Patrol Aircraft Section pilot. Who flew me around for almost 7 years, taking all the the photos that you see in the airport directory, all the aerial photos of all the airports, and all the air-to-air photos. So, and anytime we need to get to an airport, Josiah was always there to get us there safely and efficiently. So I spent a lot of time in the cockpit with Josiah, so we really got to know each other very well. Became very good friends. And he is now moving on to bigger stuff. He's flying, I'll have him talk here in a second, and he can tell you all about what he's doing, but he's flying some really cool jets for a railroad down in Georgia. So he's down there now. So we just wanted to give a recognition to Josiah. He's been bugging me. He's like, hey, can you put together a collage with all the different stuff? And I've been teasing him forever. So he's really excited to see what I put together here, I guess. Hopefully it's okay, Josiah. So this is the little award here or recognition that we put together for Josiah, which is in grateful appreciation for your dedicated service, expertise, and professionalism as a pilot for the Colorado State Patrol. Thank you for your contributions to the success of the Colorado Division of Aeronautics. And it is true. I mean, we couldn't do the airport directory and the chart if it wasn't for the guys, Josiah and all the pilots at the State Patrol and the mechanics, because I'm alive and we did some. so we have to thank everybody for what their little part is, a big part is in the aircraft section. So we've Josiah, he is an amazing pilot. We've done some really fun stuff. I don't know if you've seen some of the aerial video footage we've captured, but we sprinkle that into some of our videos and stuff that you might have seen in that last one too. But Josiah, it's been an awesome run flying with you. I can't wait to see what you do with your next position. And if you want, go ahead and speak up and have a few words.
Hey, thank you so much, Sean. And hello to the board and David. It's good to see you guys. Hopefully you guys can hear me. But I just want to thank Sean. What an amazing experience we've had over the last 7 years flying. We've got some memorable moments, some amazing shots that I will carry with me for the rest of my flying career and life. I can't tell you what it's meant to me. And then just to be able to not only working with it looks amazing. Thank you so much. That looks great. I'm so excited to see it in person. And I wish I could be there in person. I was offered an amazing opportunity. I know I left Colorado, one of the beautiful states, most beautiful states, but this opportunity I couldn't pass up, and I'm now flying for Norfolk Southern Railroad down here. We're based out of Atlanta, and I am flying an Embraer Freighter 500. It's a brand new 2020 jet. It's pretty incredible. But I just want to say thank you guys. I won't take up your time. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, David. Thank you to the team and to everyone to make this possible. It takes the whole crew and a team to put this out. And I know, and I love hearing the progression and other states following Colorado's lead on this stuff. And you know, I thank you guys for allowing me to help you in being a part of this whole project. So I made some wonderful friends and lifelong friends with Sean and Dave, and just thank you guys so much. It means a lot to me, and I'm very honored.
Very good. Thanks, Josiah. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just segue into that with some of the material. This is what Josiah helps us with. So on your tables are the new 2022 Colorado Airport Directories and the Aeronautical Chart. In our new airport directory, you'll see the cover here. That's Daniel Malia flying his Cessna, what is that, a 140 that he just polished up and restored. That's a proprietary way of taking that photo. He won't tell me how it's done. I think it might be illegal. So that's a really cool shot of him taking off of the runway there at Burlington. There's a little write-up about Daniel inside there that talks about him and his career and a little bit about the airport. Also in this new directory, we capitalized on the new weather cameras. So on the electronic version that you can find and download off our website, there are live links on here that'll take you directly to each one of our AWAS camera sites and airports with AWAS cameras. So you'll be able to get to those pretty quickly with our online version of the airport directory. And then the chart is actually, this is new. This is the first time we do. First of all, we're going to start producing this chart on an annual basis. We used to do it biannually. So now working with a company called Williams and Heinz out of Washington, DC. They're aeronautical chart pros. They do it for the FAA and everybody else. They're great. And now we have access to the sectional scale chart information. So instead of having that really tight, I don't know if you remember our old charts, they were in wax scale. So you needed to get an electron microscope out to read it. It was really more for just training and planning purposes. This is still for planning purposes because we're not updating it with each FAA cycle, but you can actually read it, and which is amazing. And it also it's a lot bigger. So these are probably going to go up on a lot of different hanger walls and whatnot, but so you can see the entire state is on here. So, which is nice, legible, easy to read. And it gave us more room to put more stuff on the back. So On the back, some of the newer stuff on here, we added those weather cameras to the maps. And then also just kind of as a proactive due diligence, we did add noise abatement procedures for airports that do have those in place. So if airports want to add to this, if you see that and you have a procedure you'd like to put in here, it's pretty basic. It's just going to give the airport name, phone number, and a link to where you can find that noise abatement information. So for airport managers that are here, we have a whole bunch of them back there, the charts and directories. So please take those back to your airports. And if those run out, we have more somewhere else so we can get more to you. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dave.
Thanks, Sean. That's really cool. So one of the other really exciting things, how many pilots in the room? Fair number of you. How many of you use ForeFlight? Keep your hands up. So we're in a partnership with ForeFlight at this very moment. ForeFlight's going to develop a Colorado content pack for us that will include the mountain routes that are on the new sectional chart, our airport directories. So we're excited to partner with Tyson Way, who's the CEO of ForeFlight. He lives here in Colorado. It's really cool. We were going to do that in-house on our own and publish it on our website, but it looks like ForeFlight's going to actually do that for us and make it available to download through their app for anybody that subscribes. So we're excited about that partnership with ForeFlight to get that information out even more broadly. So very cool. I'd also like to thank the entire division team, even though Sean gets a lot of the credit for making all that stuff look really pretty and putting it all together at the end. Putting together the airport directory data and the chart and all the other data is really a team effort that takes the whole group's work. So thank you to everybody for making that happen. Sean mentioned weather cameras really quickly. And for those of you that have been around for a little bit, you know that back in 2019, our division had an initial conversation with a gentleman named Walter Combs, who at the time was the director of the FAA's Alaska Weather Camera Program. He was down here for a conference in Boulder and we connected. And man, I said, I know you guys have only been working in Alaska, but we would love to have your weather cameras here in Colorado. What can we do to make that happen? Thanks to the leadership and the vision of the board to support my crazy idea, less than a year later, we had 13 cameras here in Colorado. We worked with Walter's group. They were incredible. I've been working with the FAA for the better part of 32 years in my career, and I've never met an FAA agency, with all due respect to John Bauer and our lovely ADO, with a group that's more responsive, forward thinking, and willing to go out and get it done. And we partnered with Walter through a reimbursable agreement with their program. We gave the FAA money. Their team came down from Anchorage and in 2020 installed weather cameras on our 13 Mountain AWAS units. It was so successful. And it was so incredible how efficient these folks were. Last year in 2021, we added those cameras to 10 airports. This year in June, we're going to add them thanks to another partnership, phase 3. We're going to add cameras to 20 more airports. So in less than 3.5 years from the first time I met Walter, we're going to have 43 locations in Colorado with these weather cameras. We were the very first state outside of Alaska to do that. We are so proud of that. And we couldn't have done it without Walter and his foresight, his leadership, his vision, and his willingness to go outside the box. I mean, they're in Alaska. What are they doing down here in Colorado? So anyway, we were really disappointed, unfortunately, that Walter retired from FAA at the end of December. But what I wanted to do as we kind of mature that program in Colorado, I wanted to present Walter. He's remote, I understand, this morning, but we wanted to present Walter with also a recognition for helping Colorado really be on the forefront of aviation safety. And I always laugh, you'll never know if there was a life that was saved because of those cameras, but I have no doubt that just like in Alaska, we will have aviators that will continue to live because of the information that those cameras provide. And we couldn't have done it without Walter's leadership. So Walter, I've got something for you here. It says, in recognition for bringing aviation weather cameras to Colorado with unmatched dedication to enhance aviation safety in the United States and the state of Colorado. So Walter, best of luck in retirement. I understand you're not going away, so we'll look forward to keeping in touch with you. But anyway, thank you for all you've done to support aviation safety here in Colorado. We really couldn't have done it without you. So thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much.
I'll maybe let Walter, if he's got some words to say. We can't see you, Walter, but the group can hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. What an honor that is. Yes, I did retire. Excuse me. I did retire, but I didn't quit doing what I do. So I started a new corporation already. Actually, I retired on a Saturday, and I took Sunday off, and I got so darn bored. I decided to start a new business and and stay in the aviation weather systems and services business. So I'm offering now consulting, engineering, design, installation, and sustainment support for cameras and other weather systems to provide better service, more service, a tighter density of service throughout the NAS for aviators. So what that consists of is a new technology in cameras that I'm developing right now, and a new weather station that will rival, at least I say rival, it will be a secondary or a fill-in, a gap filler for those locations where AWAS does not exist. And it will provide ceiling, visibility, pressure, all of the data inputs that you need to conduct proper flight decision making. So I'm pretty excited about it. I've got my manufacturers lined up. I've already got prototype equipment coming right now, and we're developing that. So by the middle or fall of this season, I should have a system that's deployable. So the new company name is Montes Corporation. Mountain is what it's Latin for mountains. Montes, M-O-N-T-I-S Corporation. And a pretty simple email address, Walter Combs @montescorp.com. But anybody wants to reach out to me, I'd be happy to work with you. And I will say that it was a huge pleasure working with Dave and Todd Green, helping get cameras started in Colorado, breaking the new frontier. And I can say that although I'm motivated and out of the box thinking and all that, I can tell you Dave and Todd really are the ones that made this thing happen. So I was just kind of the pretty face that came along, and Dave was able to actually use up my expertise and enthusiasm to make this happen. So thank you for that, Dave, very much. And thank you to the board here today. And with that, I'll close out.
Thank you, Walter.
Nice work. That's excellent.
And that concludes my director's report. I do have, for those of you that'll be around tomorrow, there's a session. I have a more comprehensive update about what's going on with the division going forward, also with Mark Miller with FAA tomorrow. So stay tuned for more details tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
All right, nice work. Okay, let's talk about our financial update. Mr. Shuck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll try to get through these quickly here since Dave and Sean tended to go long. So December's revenue came in at 3.5 million. Total for the year is at 18.8 million. We have adjusted our FY22 revenue forecast to 36 million, which this was the end of Q2, so we're just doing that now. That's up from the original budgeted amount of 33 million. And that's just reflecting the continuing strong and consistent revenue numbers we're seeing. Our next adjustment period is in April after Q3. So like I said, 3.5 million in revenue in December, which was 115% of forecast, which was 3 million. In comparison, 323.8% of the 1.1 million in December 2020, and more apples to apples, 107.2% of November 2021 revenue. And then for January, we are forecasting 3.3 million. I did look this morning, and they're preliminary at this point, but it looks like we're going to come in pretty close to bang on that. And then obviously, beginning in January 2022, we've talked about this for about a year and a half now. We have shifted our forecasting model to our regular historical model of month-to-month trends. In the past, it's been very effective in forecasting the revenue in a regular non-COVID market. Should the need to adjust this methodology change, that'll be clearly communicated to the stakeholders. Like I said, this is us getting back to normal from a forecasting standpoint as things continue to improve post-COVID.
Well, be careful when you use that word normal, okay?
I'm talking revenue-wise. Numbers don't lie. Our next slide looks at our cash balance. Our Fund 160 balance ended December at 15.7 million, up 1.2 million from the 14.5 at the end of November. And then we're projecting January to close at about 16.2 million. The increase was higher than expected for December as fuel levels at Denver outpaced expectations. And then combine that, we had a very low month for CDAG drawdowns as well. So the switch back to the revenue regular revenue forecast model should help with the accuracy of our future cash balances. We knew the last few months we were lagging behind, but we weren't changing the messaging for the sake of changing the messaging. So all good news there. Tax disbursements by month. We sent out $2.1 million of disbursements in December, 1.9 of which was sales tax, then 153,000 of AvJet and 17,000 of AvGas. They continue to follow the expected monthly trends. There's nothing out of the ordinary there. Our contingency analysis, this continues to look better and better. Essentially, we have our 2022 CDAG program of $8 million is already covered under this. And then we are in a little bit here taking action as we are requesting the CAB approve today the additional $1 million to the program from the original $8 million that you've already approved. As you can see from the graph, our projected cash balance is well above what we have allocated. That does show the proposed total of $9 million for 2022, and then a slight bump to that in 2023. But as you can imagine, looking at this graph, we probably will be communicating future years programs out differently in the future. We don't want to have a lot of blue on top there. We don't want to have a lot of cash that we don't have accounted for. So it's important that we get that back out in the system. That'll be for another meeting though. As people know, our worst case forecast that we use for our contingency model has oil at about $40 a barrel and about 35 million gallons a month at Denver. Right now they're averaging about, sorry, I should say 35 million per month at Denver. Right now they're averaging about 40 million a month, and barrel is, it was at 80 when I typed this up. It's closer to 90 today. So we are well ahead of our worst case forecast for those. So. Next up, we have our administration expenses. This 5% state mandated cap of our 21 revenue is $849,000. Our budget that was approved by the CAB at this time last year was $725,000. And then to date, we've spent $313,000 on administration, and we project a total expenditure of about $681,000. So about 4.4% of 21 revenue. So we're below the 5% statutory cap. Next slide, which is always the funnest one, is we look at fuel flow at Denver International Airports. Flowage at Denver came in at 41.7 million gallons for the month of December, up 12% from November's 37.1 million gallons, and up 166% of December 2020. And then more apples to apples, 94% of December 2019 numbers. The forecast for January was 32.5 million gallons, and that would be an increase of 138% from January of 21. And in comparison, 2 years ago, the January 2020 had 39.3 million. So 93% of those 2020 numbers. Personally, I thought the number was a little low. We'll see what it comes in at. And as you can see from our graph there, it's very hard to see the yellow dot there, which is the 2022 number. But
Maybe we should make that red.
well, it'll show up a lot better next
Or
month.
dark green.
But you can see, again, as we get back to our historical model where it kind of flattens out the orange line from 2020 through everything, obviously out of whack with COVID, but we should get back to the normal month over month trends. So that's going to help us be more accurate with our revenue and cash forecasting.
Well, outstanding.
And then our final slide, we just look at our monthly expenditure breakdown. In total, we had 2.2 million in expenditures, of which we already talked about the tax disbursements were 2.1 million. We only had CDAG drawdowns of 27,000 in December. And like I said, that was abnormally low, which is why the cash balance went up by more than we had forecasted. Drawdowns should be back to more historical levels in January, as we anticipate that kind of looking like a normal pie chart, not quite this drastic.
Very good.
That's
Excellent.
it. Happy to answer any questions from the board.
Anybody have any questions?
Hey, just a quick point. I know everybody sets their calendar to Aeronautics Board meetings, but since we're in front of people, I do want to say that and I promise this will be the last time we say it, but Dave, you and your team, as we go through and do these financial updates, to go through the last 2 years and have it be as insignificant as it has been is really something else, and it makes being board members a lot less stressful. And just thanks to you and to your team, because that's really the heart of the matter. So thanks.
Well said, George. Anyone else? All right, our next item is an action item. So let's talk about fiscal year 2022 grant funding increase.
Sure. So like I just alluded to, I am making the recommendation that the CAB approve a $1 million increase to the previously approved $8 million funding level for a CDIG program. Revenues have continued to outpace what the expectations were. We had said in August, hey, we might come back to you at the CAOA and ask for a little bit more for that, and we are. Like I said, the projected revenues and cash balance can safely cover this amount and levels consistent to it in the future. And where the background, additional funding will be retained so we can assist eligible airports for their local match from the $86 million of additional federal funding under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. But I will point out, we would have been recommending a $1 million increase to this regardless if that was there or not. That's just how we're going to allocate those funds. So that is not driving the ask, that is just what it's going to be allocated to. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions, but we are asking for the board to take action to increase the CDAG funding for the 2022 year by an additional $1 million, bringing the total to $9 million.
1 million straight.
1 million straight.
I love it.
And Mr. Chair, I'd clarify too that the intent with that would be that we would set that aside to help airports with their 10% match on the infrastructure grants that are all coming down the pike. So I know the planners all reached out to airports on that, but that's what that would be earmarked for, would be specifically to help that additional money coming into the state. I'd point out that, as I've understood through my peers around the country, we may be one of the only states in the position to help match those funding. Most states are telling airports you're on your own. So thanks to our strong revenue and good fuel prices, life's good. We've got some extra bandwidth to help airports with that $86 million that's coming through the first tranche of money in Colorado.
Well, I think with that financial dashboard presentation, Bryce, I think this is kind of an easy one, but I'll ask for a motion. Second?
A second.
George seconds. Discussion? You had us said hello. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
that takes care of that. Darn it, I thought I was gonna get a new snowplow or something. No.
Not yet, sorry,
Okay.
stand by.
Okay, our next action item is fiscal year 2022 education grant funding budget approval. Director Elaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, as you all just heard, revenues have outpaced our expectations. We continue to budget conservatively and be a little bit pessimistic, but everything is recovering a little bit quicker than we had expected. And it's really important to us that we do not have too large of an unobligated cash balance. And as you saw, it's fairly significant. It's the highest it's been in quite some time. So with that, we're respectfully requesting the board's approval to reinstate education and workforce development grant program funding for this current fiscal year 22. We originally had that programmed in FY21. And of course, when the pandemic hit, that was one of the first grant programs we pulled back to preserve our funding. But we would now be able to support a $200,000 allocation for that program this year. That would be the first time since 2014 we've actually programmed money, and maybe we're going to make it happen. So we're excited about that. Later on in the budget, when we talk about FY23, there's also a $200,000 request for this program for the next fiscal year. The great news is with the timing, we would solicit those in March, as would be our schedule. We'll be able to run both years' applications at the same time, carry forward the 22 money into next fiscal year, and have you all consider $400,000 worth of grant funding at your August meeting. Okay. So we'd solicit applications in March, review those, vet those with you. It's going to be a new process. It's going to be Hetty's first heavy lift. It's helping us work through that, but that would be our request here for this current fiscal year, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. Look for a motion to reinstate the 2022 education grant funding in the amount of $200,000.
I move to approve the grant funding.
Okay, second? Seconded, Mr. Van Tine. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're rolling again. Nice work.
Thank you.
Okay, our next action item on number 9 is the 2022 Colorado Discretionary Aviation Grant State and Local Grant Hearing. Todd Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in an effort to really get that cash balance to start to drop, I'm happy to announce this is our calendar year 2022 state and local grant hearing. So at our December meeting, we presented each of these 12 applications to the board just so they'd have an idea of what we were looking to spend our money on. So this is actually the first time we did this since 2014. We actually did a grant review for them so they could see exactly what's where the money was going. And so again, today it accounts for 12 different airports and 13 different projects, totaling just over $5.5 million in state funding. And that funding would go along with just over $800,000 of local funding to help realize right at $6.4 million in projects statewide. And on that slide right there, you could kind of see where that money was being spent. As you can see, we spend a lot of money on pavement. I mean, 75 to 80% of our funding usually goes to maintaining pavements across the state. And the top one on there, you'll see it accounts for 2 projects for $3.4 million. As our cash balance has returned to a very healthy level, we're actually able to pull some of those big projects that we had delayed due to COVID-induced revenue reductions. And we are actually going to rehab a runway down at Mineral County Airport down in Creede, Colorado. And so that accounts for $3 million of that first line item there. And so again, we're really excited to get back to somewhat of a normal program. I hate using that word as well, Kenny, but unfortunately that's the world we live in right now. And so at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on any of those 12 projects, but I would be looking for a motion to approve the 2022 state and local Colorado discretionary aviation grant program applications totaling $5,513,565 and the associated board resolution 2022-01, which approves those state and local grants.
Okay, any questions? Kind of went through this in December, so.
Mr. Chair, I would just point out real
yes.
quickly, just for everybody's edification, since we're in front of everybody, the runway rehab at Mineral County, it was actually kind of a blessing that we're going to delay that by a year because CDOT's doing a big repaving project on Highway 149 that goes right past the airport. Because it's a non-NIPIAS airport, we're able to use a state spec asphalt on that runway, which is pretty cool. So we're going to work with our counterparts in CDOT Region 5 down there to see if we can't coordinate bids on the highway work with the airport work and save everybody a little money to get the contractor more work. So it's been a while since we've been able to collaborate on a highway project, but I think it's a cool opportunity. We'll see how that goes. But Mineral County is very eager to work with us as they do the procurement to see if we can leverage CDOT's bidding on a bigger highway project.
It's nice to be building runway again.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so
it really is. And then to give you guys kind of a preview. So this is, again, just our state and local grant hearing. We're planning on our federal match grant hearing at our April CAB meeting. And so again, we're looking for $5.5 million. And then we are estimating around a $2.5 million federal match program, which matches that $8 million that Bryce approved us for prior. But that does leave that gap of that brand new $1 million we talked about to help with some of that infrastructure money that just came through. So again, this is just round 1 of 2 of our grant applications.
Understood. So let's see if I can get this right. Let's do a motion to approve the Aeronautical Board Resolution 2022-01 for state grant funding in the amount of $5,513,565.
So moved.
Second? Second. And discussion? Yeah.
No, just on your comment. You did a great job in December of really getting into the details. So that makes us, an easy decision today.
Well, and I think leveraging also other projects in the vicinity. I think that's what gets the most out of our dollars. So nice work. Very nice work. Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? All right. Let's vote by signifying by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Resolution is passed. Nice work. Okay, boy, we just have all kinds of action items, don't we?
that
Let's
budget
do-
time of the year. Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
yeah. Wow. Now we're talking about 2023 budget approvals. Bryce, you want to talk about fiscal year 2023 administrative and program delivery budget request?
You bet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of the administration budget is to allocate funding for all costs associated with the administration of the division. And the program delivery budget is to allocate funding for staff costs that are directly related to the execution of various statewide initiatives and the Colorado discretionary aeronautics grant programs in the budget year. So previously, these costs have been combined under the administration budget. Fiscal year 22, so the one we're in is the first year. They were split out to align the staff costs within the division, both with other state agencies and with CDOT as a whole to kind of separate those out so they're properly allocated. So per state statute, administration costs cannot exceed 5% of our previous year's gross revenue. FY22 revenue is projected at 36 million, as you heard earlier. So our statutory cap would be 1.8 million. When we combine the administration budget this year and the program delivery budget, we have a total budget request of 1.32 million. And that is compared to the 1.19 million approved in fiscal year 22. Our actual forecasted spend in fiscal year 22, like we said, when we combine these, is 1.163. So the administration budget portion of the budget is only 2.1% of the forecasted 36 million in revenue for FY22. So would be well below the 5% cap. And that is broken out there on the sheet there. Again, we lump these together, but separate them so we have historical context to see each year kind of what the total has been. But we are asking for approval for both 575,000 to fund the program delivery budget in FY23 and 745,000 to fund the administration budget in FY23.
Okay, questions? Okay, a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 administrative program delivery budget request in the amount of $1,320,000. Second? Seconded. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, you got your program.
Okay, we can keep showing up then. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep showing up. Thanks. Let's talk about our next action item, which is fiscal year 2023 Aeronautics property budget request.
Sure. So the property budget request is just all the costs associated with the office building where the division's located. That includes capital costs, maintenance, ground lease, utilities, just everything associated with the facility. So we do have our capital improvement plan, which we've gone through, I believe, back at the workshop in August. But as you can see from the amount we're requesting here of $65,000, we don't have any large out of the normal maintenance program plan like we did with the roof back when we had the 106,000. So it really is just keeping the office moving, paying the bills, having the water come in, a few minor projects as well, around carpeting and things like that. But so we are asking for board approval in the amount of $65,000 to fund the airport property budget request for FY23.
Okay, any questions? All right, let's do a motion for the fiscal 2023 Aeronautics property budget request in the amount of $65,000. So moved. Second. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have a property going now.
Thank you.
All right. The next item is fiscal 2023 statewide initiatives budget request. Todd?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
You bet.
So as you can see, this is our very big meeting of the year where we ask for really all our money to get ready for the next calendar year and fiscal year. And so this is really just another step to that. So via statute, we are actually able to use the aviation fund, not just to award grants to specific airports, but we can actually use them to develop programs that actually provide a statewide benefit. And that's what this whole list of programs is here. So these are what we call our statewide initiatives. And every January, we request our funding for our next fiscal year, kind of starting in July. And so as you can see, there's a list of 17 different statewide initiatives on this list. We're only requesting money for 16 of those as I'm happy to say the NASAO 2021 convention is over and we're not spending money on that on the convention anymore. So there actually is only 16 different statewide initiatives we are requesting funding for. We did include in the packet pretty detailed memos for each one of these statewide initiatives. And so if anybody in the audience wants to read more about what these initiatives are, please take a look at the packet, because there is 16 separate memos in there kind of detailing each of these programs. But it is pretty normal that we provide this list as a whole. And so the list as a whole comes to $1,815,000 to really do these statewide initiatives through the next fiscal year. So that's purely as an introduction to this. I know Dave wanted to get into and give you a little bit more information about a couple of the initiatives. So I'll hand it back over to Dave.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. I would just point out a couple of new ones here. One is item 5. First of all, I'll back up. For anybody that's out there, everything that the board gets at every meeting is available on our website. Their full packet is out there. So if you're ever interested in reading all of the memos that are behind all this, the packet is downloadable on our website. So please know that's always available. But I would point out number 5, Eaa Air Venture. The board did approve $6,000 for us to go to Eaa in FY21. We didn't go because it didn't have Oshkosh in 2021. But historically, our division would attend with other states, with the NASAO group, the National Association of State Aviation Officials, and all of the state aeronautics agencies would get together for a really good deal and be at Oshkosh for a few of those days. I think we'd like to go back and do that. Sean, we haven't done that since 2014, I don't think was the last year we were there, but it's a great opportunity to get out with the GA community and talk about what we're doing in Colorado. So we'd like to do that. That's the last weekend of July. And so that is really the one that I wanted to point out that was unique. The other one I'll point out is we did not have a surplus equipment sale this year because DEN just held on to all of their things like a lot of airports did through the pandemic. But we expect to have a pretty robust program this year. And so we did not allocate or did not spend any of the $200,000 that was approved this year, but we do expect to have a good sale this August. So those are the two I'd point out to you. And again, happy to answer any questions about any of the other items that are in there for this year's approval.
Any questions?
So I do. Hey, Todd, last night as I was going through this, I saw the $50,000 reduction in the crack fill program. And I was just curious why that, so of all the areas where, I think we're all challenged as we go to different airports and certainly this CAO, the folks in here understand that. So why, even though the note says that that's sufficient, does that restrict or does that reduce, some of the available resources for the airports to go fix these problems?
Very valid question. And honestly, thank you for it. And Kip McLean would give you this update as this is one of his programs he's responsible for, but unfortunately he's sick at home today. So I will give his update for you. So again, we did show a reduction of that $50,000 from 200,000 down to 150. Last year, we looked to purchase actually 2 new crack fill machines, because what this program includes is we can reimburse airports 90% up to $10,000 for the purchase of actual crack fill material for your airport. So that's one piece of it. But the other piece of it is we help airports get regional crack fill application machines. And so that was the reason for the $200,000 in the previous fiscal year, is we looked to purchase 2 new machines during that fiscal year. We had a gap in coverage down in the southeastern portion of the state, where we're actually looking to fill that right now with a grant we did the previous year. And so we reduced it to $150,000. That will allow us to do the entire crack fill reimbursement, which accounts for around $75,000 a year. That's at least what it has been over the last 2 or 3 fiscal years. And so we reduced that. And then that'll also allow us to buy 1 more additional crack fill machine to start replacing actually. So we have 14 crack machines around the state. And the first ones we gave out have some age on them. And so what's nice to say is we are pretty much built out with our system at this point, and we're going to be looking to either maintain or replace machines going forward. So this should be our somewhat common, is that around that 150,000, because that will allow us to reimburse everything associated with crack fill reimbursements, along with replacing 1 machine a year kind of going forward. So that's the reason for the reduction.
I have a question, Todd. Has, given the last 2 or 3 years, have we ever even come close to that budget amount of $200,000? That's the other thought I had.
Yeah.
So we have not, at least the crack fill program wise, again, we average, it kind of depends on the year. I think our low year was around 60,000 and a high year was around 80,000. And that's somewhat what we expect. And it's a program we heavily push statewide because that's, I mean, we're talking about a $3 million project down at Mineral County Airport. And so this is the program that really helps keep those pavements lasting as long as they can. And so every time we get a chance to talk about the crack fill program, we definitely push it to airports. But again, that's we usually use most of the money purely associated with half of it goes to the crack fill program. I mean, the crack fill reimbursement aspect of it.
Right.
And then the other half kind of goes to a new machine.
And you've given flexibility to the airports to choose whatever product, crack fill product is, as long as it is, because that's a good change from the past when we had to use the tires or something, or the melted tires.
That was before me, Kenny, so I'm not even going to get into that.
man.
I remember it smelled. That's all I
Shows you how old I
remember.
am. Wow, okay.
But yes, you're correct. So even our recent machines that we've purchased are dual purpose. They can either be crack fill or mastic. And so that's kind of, and we're trying to push the multi-use because again, it's a regional machine and some airports have different needs than others. And so, yes, we do have price agreements through the state for each of the different crack fill materials. And then we are reimbursing for mastic as well. So yeah, we are trying to expand the program as much as possible to make sure to maintain those pavements as much as possible.
Excellent.
Yes, and I believe that is included in our programs and procedures manual.
Would you repeat the question, Todd, so everybody?
Yeah,
can hear? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Thanks,
thank you, Dave. So the question was, is there a place we can see where each of those crack fill machines, those regional machines are located? Your nearest one is actually in Hayden. I'm looking at the map. You just can't see it. Sorry. But yes, so again, it is included in the policies and procedures manual on our website. That's probably your best way to find it. I believe it will also include a gap on that map that we actually recently filled. So, and if you have any questions about any of these statewide initiatives, please reach out to your division planners, because this is definitely something that we try to push as hard as we can statewide. So yeah, if any of the airports listening here in the room or online, please reach out to your state planners to get some additional information on all of these important programs.
So, and Stacy, I bet the airport manager at Hayden would have to send people to help too. What do you think?
Where's Dave?
Where's Dave?
Yeah, he's back there.
So if I can just make a comment, because David, I think this is, and Todd, I think this is a, very important program. It falls under the, the category of preventive maintenance. I mean, it's fire prevention instead of firefighting. So I would ask that you, as we go through the year, that we stay close enough to this so you don't get to a point where you go, sorry, we're out of money, rather than coming back to the board saying, let's look at allocating more. And then again, I think this is where we need CAO to help us, to get that word out and to make use of this great resource. It's really, really important. And as a user, that just a little bit self-serving in my comments, but very much like to see this program continue to grow, not just maintain.
No, and thank you for that comment. And that's actually where the relationship between Bryce and I, the business office, we had these conversations as we were coming together with this budget. We don't want to throw so much money in there that it protects money we could use for other things. But absolutely, if we are getting anywhere close to that near the end of the year, we're not shy about asking for money, but we want to try to be as close as we can on budget as possible. But yes, if the use is there, we will definitely be back to this board looking for a little bit more funding. Because yeah, we show the same support as you do on it. So thank you.
I can attest that we do. We have one of those machines, and actually you can still see the color red, which is amazing. That's how new it looks. So. Cool. No, it's great.
So you're not getting a new one soon.
Is there any other questions? Okay. With that, we'll search for a request a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sorry. Greg's going to offer his personnel, I think, to help another report. Is that what you're going to do?
Whatever we can do.
Okay.
So Greg Phillips, Colorado Springs. So just a couple of other programs. I know the airport internships and the education and workforce developments have, while they're not large reductions, they are reductions. And I'm just curious if you could talk about that. They're such important programs, and I think many airports have benefited particularly from the internships. So, and it's great to see you all.
Well
No,
said.
thank you again. And this honestly goes back to the relationship with the business office and the planning office. So we definitely did a review over the last 3 years of what the spends have been through these programs. And the budgets have been a little high in the past. And that's the reason we kind of want to, again, we're in the land of COVID and we don't know what any of these new variants will do. And so we want to create a budget that honestly is as close as we can come for some of these programs just based on past use. And again, if we have more airports that want to do internships, we actually have quite a bit of coverage in that program to bring new ones on. And then if we go even close to that number, yeah, we will come back to this board because again, most of our staff at the Division of Aeronautics went through that internship program. So it's definitely something that we absolutely support.
Yeah, and what I would say too, I can attest with the board, we confirm that we do really discuss this with the board, these initiatives. And they're always fine tuning these and refining these and maybe, I try to resist one of my crazy ideas, but yeah, it's been really a great interaction. So any other questions from anyone else?
And I would say on average, we have about 8 airports at any given time that are in the internship program. It's not a huge number, but for any of you airports that don't have an intern, if you would like one, we're not going to pay for somebody to mow the grass for you. You've got to have a good program to actually help them learn something about running an airport. But we'd love to have more airports in that mix, but we kind of have the same batch of 8 that are perennials. We'd love to see some more folks in that mix. And we work with Greg and his team. They came to us a few years ago about an airport maintenance internship that helped give them some bandwidth and help people learn about maintaining an airport. There's a lot to do in that too. So if you've got an out of the box idea, I think it's fair to say we're all ears. We'd love to talk to you about your thoughts. So.
Absolutely. And then the other program I will highlight, since we are talking about many of these, is the surplus program. So we kind of beat up George a little bit ago for not having any equipment. So thanks. But this program is not just Denver providing equipment to other airports. And so I did want to make sure and offer it up to make sure the other airports out here in the audience and online knew that if you have equipment that is no longer of use to your airport, let us know because we can add that to our surplus program and see if there are other airports across the state that could use that equipment. So again, this is we're always looking to see how we can expand these programs. It's actually part of our strategic plan that we just recently approved too. And so yes, surplus wise, if you have equipment at your airport that is no longer of super use to you, one of our smaller GA airports may have a great use for that at their airport. It may completely change the way they do snow removal to get some of that larger equipment. So again, reach out to your division planner or directly to Caitlin for surplus. But again, that's another program that makes sense to highlight as well.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? All right, well, how about a motion for the 2023 statewide initiatives budget request for 17 initiatives in the amount of $1,815,000.
So moved.
Seconded. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Here you go.
Cool. Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair.
All right, let's talk about the some program updates and fill us in on the division strategic plan there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just be real brief with this. Again, all of this information is on our website, but back in 2018, the division adopted, the board adopted a strategic plan to kind of help us figure out what we needed to focus on and what all of you as our stakeholders expected us to do. We know state statute says we have to process fuel tax disbursements. We know state statute says we have to have a grant program and we have to support aviation safety. But within those very broad bookends, the board and the division has a lot of latitude in what we invest our resources in as we accomplish our mission. So we stood that up. It's the first time we'd ever done one in 2018. In early 21, we found that we had either accomplished most of the things in that strategic plan or decided in some cases it just was not a good idea. That happens. So with that, last year in August, the board adopted a new strategic plan that maps out what we're going to focus on for the next 3 years. That strategic plan has 4 overarching goals with 19 different objectives under those to help us accomplish those goals. And I won't get into all of those right now. feel free to read what's in there. I will focus on just two of them real quickly. And the first one is goal number one, which is to engage with industry to support and facilitate emerging technologies like alternatively powered aircraft, aviation fuels, navigation systems, and things like that by the end of fiscal year 24. If you've been paying attention to our board meetings, you probably heard me get up on my soapbox. Aviation is changing. The technology that's going to power aircraft in the next 10 to 15 years is going to change more dramatically than it did in the late 50s with the introduction of the jet engine in the commercial airline world. Battery electric airplanes, hydrogen fuel airplanes, sustainable aviation fuel, all of this is happening today. If you're following the Aviation Alice, that's the one I get really geeked out about. It's supposed to fly this week. It's 9-seat battery electric pressurized airplane, 250 knots, 450 nautical mile range. That airplane has been purchased by Cape Air, which is a regional airline provider. It's going to be entering service in the next 10 years. We've got to figure out how to get our airports ready to support electric aircraft, hydrogen fueled aircraft. Alaska Airlines donated a Q400 to a group called Zero Avia, who is creating a regional turboprop that will run on electric motors powered by a hydrogen fuel cell that you just plug into the back of the airplane while you're loading passengers. That's the kind of stuff that's coming down the pike that we really want to pay attention to, and how we can lead the way nationally and help get our airports ready for that. It's kind of a chicken or egg. You know, you don't get the airplanes without the power, and kind of hard to justify the power without the airplanes. But we're going to work with the National Renewable Energy Lab here in Colorado. We have established an amazing partnership with NASA, who's doing some very cool things in that right now. And within the next 6 weeks, we're going to have a study scope that will utilize the board's previously allocated $200,000 to help us map out what that might look like in Colorado. But I got to tell you, I think what I get excited about is the 74 paved airports that we have in Colorado are going to be able to support aircraft like that. Aviation Alice, these electric caravans, they don't require airport certification under 139. They're small enough, they don't require TSA. You're going to see an opportunity to leverage our smaller general aviation airports with these airplanes. They're super cost effective to do some cool things for mobility around Colorado. And we want to be taking a role in that as a board. I think I'm speaking for you, but as a board and certainly as a division. So we have a lot of work focused around that. We're going to look really forward to engaging with all of you in those conversations about how we can help your airports be ready for the future and leverage this new technology when it gets here, because it's coming. It might take a little longer than we think, but it's going to come no matter what. The other one that was a carry forward from our 2018 plan was continuing to do outreach and advocacy. That's part of our mission. That's part of what the board is responsible for. And so one of the things that we do, a couple of things you'll see that we help produce with CAOA, you'll see these tonight, is a state legislative district map overlaid with the airport map. So all of you can take a look at a glance and see who your reps and senators are. And for the legislators, it helps them understand which airports they have in their district. Some of them don't have any, some of them have a lot. So please feel free to use this, share this with your folks back home. The other thing that we do, again, just a fantastic thing, is our annual report. We used to do this on a fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs, I think, like yours, July to June. It got really confusing when we would issue an annual report in August. So we this year we transitioned to a calendar year report. You've got printed copies here. It's available for you to download on our website. Again, please feel free to share. But if you want to know all about what we're up to and how we're doing beyond what I've shared today, this is how you can get that info. So feel free to grab one of those and take a look. But Mr. Chair, just a couple of things we're working on in the strategic plan there. No action required there.
Well, outstanding, as everyone can see, we're not lacking in enthusiasm.
Exactly.
So,
I'll tell you what, it's coming. It's cool stuff.
And I just, to be very clear, and I think all of our friends are here in this room, is the division does an excellent job of updating their website. If you would like to see the strategic plan in more detail, it's all available for you. So strongly encourage you to take a look at that, and certainly let the division know if maybe we're missing something. So I like that. So excellent. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. Let's go to the Honorable Mr. Bill Payne, talk about the remote tower program.
I don't think it's on.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay, good. So the first part of the month, we had some FAA folks come out and visit for the remote tower to discuss the testing, which was supposed to take place the next week. However, the ever elusive integrated management team just canceled it because of COVID. And so, but they were out here while they were at the facility. I met with several of the folks that are going to fly for us, fly some of the scenarios when we do start our testing. We met with Ames up at FNL and with the chief pilot for the hospital who's going to fly helicopters. They also installed a video grabber system on the video wall to allow recording of that to be shown at FAA headquarters. Speaking of the ever elusive integrated management team, they meet tomorrow. I'm going to be on that meeting to decide if they come out next week to start phase 1 testing. So these are all made up of all the -1s in the FAA upper level management group. I have no idea what they're going to do. Right now, the COVID level is, it seems to be receding, but we still have fairly high numbers. If for some reason they decide not to do that next week, then the next time will be the first week of March. If everything goes okay, we'll be able to start testing at that point. We've got 3 of the controllers at FNL tested positive for COVID. So that was one of the things that got the folks a little nervous. We've got new controllers. We've got a full complement of 6 controllers now, trying to get 2 more in preparation for the testing. The mainstay of our operation is to be able to get our phase 1 testing going. And I'm for the first time in a long time, feel very good about that. We have got new subject matter experts who've never seen a remote tower, but my conversations with them lead me to believe that they're going to be open-minded, and I think it's going to be good. They represent the air traffic, air safety, and procedures. So they'll be coming out next week, hopefully, or if not in March. On another little different note, Mark Van Tine followed me up to Fort Collins. I had to slow the Cub way down so he could keep up with me. But he flew up there and saw the system. And on the way back, he had some lame ass excuse about having to get home early. So he took off and left me in the dust, which I'm still trying to get over that. But anyway, so that's my report. If there are any questions or anything, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions on the tower? Okay. Well done. Keep up the good work. You said March of this year, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure it's clear about that. So, okay, moving on to number 13, legislative issues, and let's talk about our 2022 Advocacy Resolution. So, just to kind of preface this for everybody's benefit, the Division of Aeronautics cannot directly advocate or lobby for initiatives or what have you. So the division is good to coordinate with us as board members because we can advocate all we like, and we're put in this position for exactly that kind of activity. So as a strategy, so if anything comes out on the radar or what have you, Dave coordinates and lists a bunch of initiatives like the pilot shortage, for example, those kinds of things. So that's why we do this formally. We advocate, we have something that we're all so we're all on the same page and doing the same thing. So we're operating, marching in the right direction. So.
And that's it. I appreciate it. Again, it's very helpful for me when I get asked by the governor or one of our federal legislators about what do we think about a particular issue. I may not be able to say I support or oppose this issue, but I can say the board has expressed their formal support of this, and that's great. And then they're appointed by the governor. If the governor doesn't care for their position, he can have a chat directly with Kenny and the rest of you. So that's kind of the way that works. It's really the nice thing about the way our division is structured, as opposed to my counterpart in, let's say, Utah, that doesn't report to a board, reports to a DOT director. So this year's advocacy resolution, I won't go through it in detail, but we do have 3 changes that we've added this year. One, I think, as anybody has seen relative to the comment a minute ago about the new aviation technologies coming down the pike, the aviation industry broadly has said we want to be carbon neutral by 2050, and that's sustainable aviation fuel and electric hybrid aircraft and things like that. Of course, I think we would support that. Obviously, we want aviation to be sustainable. And of course, for the majority of the larger aircraft, the answer to that is sustainable aviation fuel. So one of the things that we added in this year was the board's support for state and federal incentives that would make sustainable aviation fuel more broadly available and producible. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer. We love sustainable aviation fuel because guess what? It's taxed just like a gallon of fuel that's pulled out of the ground. So we don't have to go find another revenue source, the more sustainable aviation fuel we have. So that was one. The other one that doesn't necessarily directly impact airports or the board, but is certainly in line with our aviation safety initiative, is if you read the news towards the end of last year, there were a number of laser strikes on helicopter EMS operators, especially in the Denver area. That group, in coordination with the Colorado Aviation Business Association, has introduced a bill that would make that illegal at the state level. It's obviously illegal at the federal level, but there's no such penalty at the state level. So we've added support for the board's effort in that. Mike's been engaged in that effort too, Mike, so thank you. And then the last one is hopefully making a request to the state legislature for a one-time general fund recapitalization of our state infrastructure bank loan program that we administer at Aeronautics. That program's got about $24 million in it right now. All of it, almost all of it, is out on loan, which is a great problem to have. The problem is that if somebody comes to us right now and wants a significant SIB loan, I have to tell you, you have to wait because we don't have the money until the payments start coming in. So it's an amazing program. It does great things. It's a 2% interest rate. It's easy to get. And we would love to have some more funding put into that. And the best part about that is because it's a revolving loan fund, if we get a $5 million, let's say, general fund contribution, that money continues to work in perpetuity because it just comes right back to us with interest. And so the request that's in the advocacy resolution does not include a specific dollar amount, even though the $5 million is one that we've talked about, but we would add that in, and then we would work with CAOA hopefully to maybe help carry some water on that, because that obviously benefits all of you airports if you want to come to us for an SIB loan. So those are the 3, Mr. Chair, that were new from last year. The other carry forwards are pretty typical. You all have opposed privatization of air traffic control services. And you supported, including remote towers and the federal contract tower program when supported, and all those other things. You can all see the resolution if you would like, but those are the 3 big changes, Mr. Chair. I would point out just one last thing that we did talk about via email with all of you. The Colorado Aviation Business Association has introduced a bill that would extend the existing sales and use tax exemption on air carrier aircraft to Part 135 on-demand carriers. There's some work being done on that bill. It needs a little bit of amendment. I will tell you that I just heard, literally as our meeting was starting, the governor's office would like to meet with all of you to better understand that bill and its implications before you all necessarily weigh in on that. So I might ask, although we talked about maybe adding support for that bill in, that maybe we wait and visit with the governor's office to make sure there's not a disconnect.
I think that's a good idea. Let's just make sure we're marching in steps, since the governor is the one who put us in these positions.
It's
so.
your choice, Mr. Chair, but
Don't want to
but anyway, we
I
would
think with that exception, but that's, so we're kind of holding that out of our.
Correct.
Okay.
So we would, staff would request approval of the original resolution that was included in your packet that was sent last week, 2022-02,
Okay.
without the amendment on the sales and use tax exemption.
Does anyone have any questions about this resolution? Yes.
Just want to say, for all the reasons that Dave just articulated, we don't do a whole bunch of funding requests from the state, but this makes a tremendous amount of sense and benefits the entire system. And I think it'd be worthwhile to go and explore what other members of the aviation community would be supportive of that as well.
And hopefully you all can use this. I know I've had a lot of conversations. Greg and I talked about a couple of the things in here earlier this week, but hopefully you all can take this legislation back to your own elected officials if they want to know, hey, what's the state think of a particular issue? You can feel free to use use this as well and say, well, here's what the Aeronautics Board thinks on some of this. And of course, if any of you are looking for some inside baseball on any of this, I usually get some of that. I can certainly help talk to you about some of that and what we're thinking. So
Excellent. Okay, with that, how about entertain a motion to approve the 2022 Advocacy Resolution. That's the resolution number 2022-02. Seconded? Seconded by Ms. Sabro. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there you go.
excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So let's do our Caitlin, want to talk a little bit about our conflict of interest statements
Sure.
that we have to do annually?
Yes, I'll do it very quickly.
Okay.
So starting in 2010, we've done an annual board conflict of interest statement. This is for us to have on record so that if anybody comes back and says, you know, Kenny voted for the Telluride grant, that's a conflict of interest. He's not going to do that. He's going to abstain from the vote. It'll be on his conflict of interest form that he represents the Telluride Airport. This was a result of our 2009 performance audit, where we were one of the first boards in the state to start doing it, and we've continued to do it as a calendar thing. You'll, on the back of the form, I mean, obviously read it, but the back of the form is where you'll state your actual or potential conflict of interests. And after you fill that out and sign it, we'll keep it on record for the year, and we'll sign another one next year.
Excellent. Okay. Number 15, let's talk about the proposed calendar. This is an action item.
It is just a couple of changes, Mr. Chair, to our calendar that was approved originally. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 13th. That's our general cab meeting. And then as Todd alluded to earlier, our federal match grant hearing is at 1 o'clock at our offices at the Air and Spaceport. And then June 8th through 10th, the date is yet to be determined. We'll work with Angela, but we'll have our general meeting in conjunction with the CAOA Spring Conference, which she's graciously hosting out in Grand Junction. So looking forward to that. I would point out one other thing on the calendar that came up just last week. For those of you who may remember, there used to be Aerospace Day at the Capitol. That was not held last year, obviously, but it's coming back here on, just found this out, it's March 8th. It's going to actually be Aerospace Day at the McNichol Civic Center, but it's a really cool opportunity. Lockheed will be there with a booth. It's where industry goes, interfaces with legislators. The governor's always there to talk about aerospace and aviation in Colorado. So we'll look forward to participating in that. That's all day Tuesday, March 8th. We'll certainly make sure you all have an invite if you're interested in coming down, and we'll be there like we always have been when they did it before with our bells on. So.
Okay, any questions? Anybody have any conflicts on those dates? Okay. So we need a motion to approve the proposed calendar, 2 dates, Wednesday, April 13th for a general meeting, and June 8th through 10th at the CAOA conference in Grand Junction. So moved. Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Okay, we got our next couple of meetings lined up.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And finally, other matters by the public. I believe we have a special treat from Jason. Talk a little bit about your program. Some exciting things at Northern Colorado Regional Airport.
That's good.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, board, for having me. I'm really excited to be here to talk briefly about an exciting project that we have coming online in the near future at FNL at the Northern Colorado Regional Airport. For those of you tuning in, I'm Jason Lacone. I'm the airport director at the Northern Colorado Regional Airport, and wanted to just share some news with you about our new terminal project that we're working feverishly on right now. We're at about 30% design, so fully through schematic with our project, and most recently hired on a small company called Hensel Phelps, who might be in the terminal building industry elsewhere in Colorado, but will be helping us with actually constructing this new facility. So some really cool renderings that we're showing, and I just want to stress that it couldn't be possible without the help and support of the board and the Division of Aeronautics. Without the remote tower project, That was the catalyst that really brought on the ability to accommodate air carrier aircraft at our airport safely and efficiently. In addition to that, all the support that we get for programming. This was something that we had on our CIP for about five to 10 years out, and we're able to bring that forward with some of the CARES Act money that we received, as of a lot of other airports in the state, working on terminal projects. And we're really excited to be working toward this goal. One other point that I want to make is, the SIB loan program is something that we've targeted to be able to bridge the gap on what this design will entail to become a reality in the future. We're expecting a 2024 arrival of this building to be able to open this up. And we've applied to be in the queue for SIB loan funding to be able to bridge the gap so that we can make this a reality in 2023. So, if everybody's out there looking at SIB loan funding capability, I know that we talked about the legislative issues, and one of those items is recapitalization of the SIB program, which a lot of airports have utilized. We're going to be utilizing that hopefully in 2023. And because we are, there won't be anything available for quite a while again. So we're waiting for the funding to become available in 2023. We're working on getting that application in once the funds do become available. And we're looking at about $5 to $7 million from that program to apply toward this project. So just wanted to mention that, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Love to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
So you're only going to have Boeing test aircraft flying in there, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Oh, a little loud. So I just wanted to give a quick CAOA update. Appreciate everybody coming out, braving COVID and the impending storm to join us for our winter conference. As was mentioned, the spring conference is going to be hosted by Grand Junction June 8th through the 10th. So we appreciate all the help that Angela, Dylan, Sarah Ming, and their staff have been working with Ken on all the planning for that conference. The host airports always have to put in a lot of work and lift a lot of heavy weights to get that done. So we appreciate their assistance with that. Registration for that conference should be coming out in the next 2 weeks. So look for updates on the CAOA website, and also we'll be sending out an email blast. Last year, we had a pavement maintenance training at Rocky Mountain Metro, and it was a great success. This year, the plan is to do a 2022 Airfield Marking Professional Certification Program, and that's being hosted by the Colorado Springs Airport. The week of July 18th is what we're targeting, and the exact dates will be determined as we get closer. The training and certification will be done by Sightline, and so thanks to Greg Phillips and staff for hosting that training event. Both trainings are actually funded by CAOA and a generous grant from the Division of Aeronautics and CDOT, so we appreciate your partnership in that program. We also expect to have one open CAOA board slot available that we plan to fill at the spring conference. And so if you have an interest in serving on the CAOA board, please let me know and send me a letter of interest, and we'll put you on the ballot for the spring conference. And with that, that's all I got. Thank you.
I think everybody should be aware that Mike is the president of CAOA, and also want to congratulate him on him being the new executive director for Centennial Airport. So congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much. It's quite the privilege to be able to be in a position to take on that role. Robert leaves some huge shoes to fill, or flip-flops in a sense. I will mention that Kenny actually was one of the people that hired me into aviation as an intern at Centennial Airport. So I appreciate you having confidence in me back, circa 1999 or so.
Wow.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. Congratulations, Mike. So is there anybody else that'd like to share? Oh, Mr. Lawson. Okay. All right. Well, good. I think with that, let's go eat.
Sorry, just
sorry.
briefly. My name is Jeff McVeigh. I'm a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration, and we're housed right across from Centennial Airport. I've worked a lot with Jeremy Gunn, who works for you, Mike. Very, very helpful. We're trying to get off a program last year that we called it Colorado Aviation Project. We since changed the name. We're expanding. We are in 4-state region. Our division is Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. Obviously, I've flown a lot in Colorado on our Bell 407 and our Saloy. I really enjoy the airports. I think you'll do a wonderful job at maintaining them, and they're always great to fly in. I always enjoy meeting the people. Wanted to talk about the program, though. The Rocky Mountain Aviation Program is something that I'm program manager on. We're trying to affect money laundering and drug transport, primarily out of Colorado, as you can imagine the type of drugs. But these are the kind of things that we find out after the fact, just how much is going on through these airports. So what I would like to do is pass out some cards, the temporary. I'm going to get some permanent ones in about a week or two. Trying to stay in touch where I can. Anybody, any help you can give me, any ideas especially. I'm looking for anything to help get this program off the ground and you know, have an effect on some of the illegal activity we're seeing. It's just staggering what we hear in other states after the fact, but we're trying to affect that, you know, while we can here. And it's really kind of a needle in the haystack to be there when we're doing ramp checks and that type of stuff, you know, working with FAA and working on our own, going out, running canines at night. But we'd like to have you work with us, know about it, know about the program, give us any ideas, and help us pass information to the support staff for your airports to help us succeed. So thanks for your time.
May I suggest,
Yes, sir.
as a great resource for you as your endeavors, I would really, a great point for you as a contact is really the division. It's a small group, but they would know how to find, especially in some of these remote airports.
Right.
Sometimes I can't find Stacy. So, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things. So it might be a great resource because they do know how to get a hold of us because they give us money. So
Sure, sure.
So yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go to lunch? Okay. Seeing no hands, let's go ahead and break for lunch. Thank you. Thank you for everybody for attending.
And we will be having lunch in this room as well. So if you want to tidy up your spot knowing you're coming back with a full plate, that may be beneficial.